Cool. There's my first one.
There it
Cool.
is,
Great.
dude.
Wait, way to go.
Done. Dunzo.
I'll just be over here, dude.
But yes.
This is Total Annihilation.
What's up, everybody? My name is Parker Ament.
My name's Danny Ferrari.
And we are Excellent Sound. Today, we got a crazy video for you. Every Wednesday, we do something different, and we always try to be unique and to give you guys the secret sauce.
Absolutely. We're going to show you the secret sauce today.
Yeah, and we're revealing some crazy secrets today. So we thought it would be a really good idea to give you guys our top 10 plugins that we use every day in all of our sessions. Could be production, could be mixing, could be even mastering. So I'm gonna do 5, and Danny's gonna do 5, and we're gonna show you guys some really interesting tips on how we use these plugins too, not just show the plugin.
These are all plugins. These are not virtual instruments. So, which I apparently didn't realize. We're gonna be using our project file for Annihilation from our brand new pack, Mid-Temps Volume 2, to show you guys some examples. If you guys wanna go ahead and get that pack right now, there's still a limited number of copies available. And when you get the actual exclusive pre-sale list, you just click the link down in the description. We send you an email link for that exclusive pack. You're gonna be able to get over 250 bonus presets, signature series samples, and the project file, and plus tons of other content. So make sure you guys go and do that if you guys wanna take advantage of that pack right now.
Yeah, it's going quick, so make sure you get it. Once they're out, there's no more time to get the bonuses. It's just gonna be the standard Mid-Temps 2 pack.
Yeah.
Which is still badass.
Still pretty cool.
Still badass.
But not as cool as this.
Yeah, so let's jump into it.
We're tag teaming them, dude.
Exactly, we're tagged Eiffel Tower.
Bam! Plugins right here between us.
We're taking you to France, baby.
Go like this. Fabfitter EQ in here.
Yeah, Fabfitter. All right, so when I chose my first 5 out of all of them, I wanted to pick some kind of unique ones that maybe you guys have seen, maybe you haven't, instead of just kind of standard ones. So the first plugin that I'm gonna be going over is BX Saturator. Now, there's a bunch of different versions of this. They all look the same. They're all by Brainworx. There is a UAD version. There's a Plugin Alliance version. We're using the Plugin Alliance version on this. And essentially what it does is it is a mid-side saturator. So what that is essentially you can saturate and mess with the different stereo fields of a sound. I don't go too far into messing with the mid-side, but the key to this plugin is this mono maker right here. The way that this mono maker works is you choose a frequency and it turns everything below that frequency mono, which is insane.
Very helpful.
Very helpful. So let's take a listen to how that sounds. I'm just using the break group in our Annihilation track so you can really hear that low end and see the difference. You can really hear it when we get to about 12 o'clock, which is like 637 hertz. And it's really, really helpful. A lot of mastering engineers like to mono their low end out just to make room for everything else in the track. And I kind of like thinking about that, like when we're producing, when we're mixing, instead of waiting to the end and putting it on the master. You know what I'm saying? So I know that you and me, we use utility a lot. We like to turn the utility mono. This is another really cool way.
And it's saturation too, so it's a little bit more than just like utilities algorithm of pretending something's mono.
There is a bunch of different functionalities. So like on the sides, you can heighten the sides up.
That sounds kind of nice.
And it sounds really, really nice. It's really, really clean, and it gives you really that really dirty drive that you're looking for, but it's only on the sides. So it leaves room for a lot of other stuff. But back to your question is, yes, I put them on the groups. I also put them on individual sounds. So, you know, like the buzz saws for mid-tempo. If you wanted to make that whole thing mono, you would just go boom, and it gives it a different texture than if you were just turning it mono with the utility.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, so I do that. I set up this little rack so you guys can actually have a visual of what is going on with the low end on this. So I just have ozone imager up. So I'm cutting all the highs up to 323, so only imaging the low end so you can really see what's going on. So here we go. Let's start from 0, and I'm gonna slowly turn it up to where I like it.
Ah, cool.
So right around 12 o'clock, it starts getting really, really mono. I don't think that I would go up this high on something like this, just because there's a lot of stuff going on. We really like that width on all of these synths, but this gives you a really good visual representation of what this plugin is doing.
Cool.
You could do the same thing in Imager too. You can like make a band right here to whatever what did we do, like 180, and then you would just modify it right over here. Modify.
Don't take my plugin, dude.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying.
You're teaching my plugin, bro.
Is this on your list?
Yeah, it is.
Oh my god.
You're fucking telling people my secret.
Cut this shit out.
No, leave it in. Let people know how much of a piece of shit he is. Cool. There's my first one.
There it
Cool.
is,
Great.
dude.
Wait, way to go.
Done. Dunzo.
I'll just be over here, dude.
But yes. All right, so that's the first plugin. And now I don't remember what the other plugins are. So the next plugin on my list of plugins that you can't live without is the GHZ VULF compressor. VULF. Now this is like a super boutique-y compressor slash lo-fi enabler slash crazy. It's a crazy plugin. And it's made by this band called Wolfpack, and they do this crazy funk, real instrument stuff, and I love everything that they make. This is one plugin that I use on pretty much every session that I do.
I'm not gonna lie, bro, that looks German as fuck.
It probably is German. Wolf
It sounds...
press. Wolf
Look
press.
at it. It looks like Ableton too, where it just looks like a math project.
Yeah, dude. There's a couple really cool presets that I like to use in here. There's some mastering stuff. There's some parallel stuff that I really like. Tubas Glue Parallel is super, super sick. There's some also like over-the-top crushing presets. Crazy stuff in here to give you some really, really interesting sounds. But what I really use it for, if I were to put it on, say, this drop group, for example, I would do like a 2-bus parallel and then kind of mix it in. So this is a really nice preset that I like on here. And then also what I use it for is more stuff on the melodic side. So let's say, let's pull up this ARP right here.
The Weeknd's face.
Yeah, the Weeknd's face. Put it over here. All right, this has the filter off, and this is full VULF compressor.
VULF.
VULF. This wow feature is really sick. It has kind of like this pitch bendy.
Oh, weird.
Gives you kind of like a vintage vibe. And then this also lo-fi knob is one of my favorites too. Adds some really, really nice...
It's like filtering it a little bit.
Yeah, it's filtering it, and it also adds some noise. So if you haven't used this filter, be careful with this lo-fi, because if you're all the way up, you're gonna have noise. But really, really cool for melodic loops, really cool for pads and synths. So this is my number 2. I use this on everything, especially for tonality. All right, so my third plugin that I use in every session is the MAAG EQ4. Now this has a bunch of different versions. There's a UAD and a Plugin Alliance version. We're using the Plugin Alliance again, but this is probably my favorite EQ for adding air and high end. It's very clean, it's not brittle, and a lot of plugins where you add air, it's like, it's crushy, you know? It's hurting your ears, and this one is the nicest one that I've used. There's a lot of like kind of gimmicky plugins out there that add air, and I'm not really into it, and I've been using this for years, probably 6 or 7 years now. So I got this vocal pre-drop from Mid-Temps Volume 2, and I'm just gonna adjust the high-end band right here so you guys can hear it. So this is without it.
Who's ready to jump?
Sounds really good, but I do want a little bit more air. So let's turn this on, and I'm going to put this to 10, and I'm gonna slowly bring in some more air.
Who's ready to jump? Who's ready to jump?
So it's very subtle, but it sounds really good.
Who's ready to jump?
And you can go all the way up to 40.
Who's ready to jump?
And kind of back
Who's
this off a
ready
little
to
bit.
jump? Who's ready to jump?
And even when you get up all the way up to 8 and you're peaking and everything,
Who's ready to jump?
this cuts through the mix all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of people always ask, like, how do you get your vocals cutting through and getting that really nice, like poppy, really nice high end? There's a lot of different ways you could do that, but this is a huge, huge way to do it, especially if you put it on like an aux or if you make an instrument rack out of it and then create the dry wet.
And this MAAG EQ thing, this is like an old like engineer trick. This is the Dan Garcia special,
Yep.
which is old. He's an old friend of ours.
Yeah.
And he's an insane engineer. engineer, awesome music producer, and really talented. But yeah, this was like his like little go-to trick that kind of spread around to all of us engineers and friends. But it's a good little trick. A lot of people use this, and it really helps the vocals cut through. I can really tell that a lot with this.
Yeah, and I don't use these other knobs really. I literally just use this air knob and the air band right up top.
That's what I was kind of thinking about, was like, even like the BX Saturator that you were just showing, it's like, you're using it mainly for one knob, because like sometimes when we look at these plugins, like they get like super confusing, because there's like 40 different knobs, and sometimes it's just like, look, you don't have to touch everything. Even though I want to, like I want to turn all the knobs and see what they do. Yeah. But sometimes there's a secret sauce, turn this one knob, that's all you need. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And you can find these little tricks within these crazy, complicated plugins, you know? But I think that's a really good point. Once you find a cool plugin, there's little techniques within these complicated plugins that will really take you to the next level. So my next plugin that I have to use in every session is this reverb. It is the EMT 140. This is the UAD version of it. And this is probably my favorite reverb for all purposes. So I use it on vocals, I use it on synths, I use it on everything. A big tip that I think about with reverb is I don't want to hear reverb, really. I want to feel reverb. I want it to be there, but I don't want to be like, oh shit, there's reverb on that. You know what I'm saying?
You just want the tip.
I just want the tip. So that's how I think about all reverb, unless I'm doing a reverb throw. Want it to be subtle, and this plugin gives that to me. My favorite setting on this EMT 140 is I go to the presets, I go to additional banks where everybody doesn't go, and then you go to lead vocals A. Boom. So this is the default setting. I'm putting this on an insert so I can kind of get a nice dry wet going. And the first thing that I do is I turn this all the way up, turn wet off, and then this reverb time right here, I pull this down to between like 1 and 2. And that's just shortening the time of the reverb, making it a little bit smaller. And if you don't hit this wet button right here, the whole reverb is gonna be out of whack.
Yeah, phasing issues too, because if you're putting it on a return.
Exactly, yeah. So make sure you turn that off and put it wet, 100% wet. And then that's it. So let's use that same vocal, and I'm gonna show you guys where the sweet spot is on this.
Who's ready to jump?
That's no reverb, a little bit of tail.
Who's ready to jump?
That's a clean reverb.
So super, super clean reverb. So another thing that I do is I always add an EQ after the reverb send, and I cut a ton of the lows. Now, I used to cut all the way up here.
Who's ready to jump?
And just have that as the sizzle reverb at the end, because in the mix, you know, it gets really muddy up here. But more recently, I've started to, you know, mature a little bit.
Yeah, dude.
And I'm pulling this back a little bit.
Who's ready to jump? Who's ready to jump?
And there's some really nice stuff going on over here. So if you know what you're doing, then you can really balance out this kind of like muddy, low mid.
Who's ready to jump?
And this is with nothing.
Who's ready to jump?
A lot of weird stuff going on down there. So I always cut this.
Who's ready to jump?
Beautiful, subtle reverb.
Angelic, I'd even say.
Angelic, very. All right, and my final 5th plugin that I use in every single session is the Fabfitter Pro-L2. Woo! Now, I'm gonna preface this as saying I really like the Pro-L1 a lot better than Pro-L2. Might be a little bit of a controversial statement, but I really like Pro-L1 better than Pro-L2, and we upgraded the plugin on this computer, so I don't have Pro-L1 on this, I only have Pro-L2. So what I did was I copied all of the settings that I really like from the Pro-L1, and I moved it to Pro-L2. For this example, we're using Pro-L on our master, and we have a couple different versions of our mastering chain, Master Blaster stock. We also have a Master Blaster third party, which has all third-party stuff in it, which is really cool. And when we're producing, there's different circumstances where we like different tones of limiters. In the stock, we have our glue compressor right here. We're just cutting up -6 dB, and then we're boosting it back up by 2. It's subtle, but we also have the soft clip on here to kind of roof it up. Really slow attack and slow release. It sounds really good. So let's listen to where it is right now before adding Pro-L, and then I'm gonna activate Pro-L so you guys can hear it. So here is the drop of Annihilation.
Annihilation.
So Sounds really good, sounds clippy, sounds very aggressive like we like it. So now let's mute this and let's listen to the Pro-L version.
Annihilation.
So if you notice, it feels a lot more full.
Yeah,
now,
it's much better.
Yeah, much better. And the setting on Pro-L1 is called Hip Hop Beats Extra Wide.
That's the secret sauce.
It is the secret sauce. If you guys have it, use it all the time and then just mess with the makeup gain right here. So essentially what it is it's the punchy style of limiting. 0 look ahead, the attack is 1342 milliseconds, a shorter release, 207 milliseconds, transients at 37%. This is kind of where it starts getting a little bit more subtle. And then the channel link release is 62%. So if you're using a lot of these different settings in Pro-L2, it's very, very aggressive. We love all of these. You know, the EDM stuff is a little too aggressive for what we do, especially when we're...
The way we mix, at least.
The way we mix. We're pushing everything super hard, and this just, it's too much. It gets crunchy and distorted. And this hip-hop mastering is just not the same as the magic in Pro-L1.
Yeah.
Really, really awesome. We use this on the master pretty much all the time when we can. For some reason that it's a little bit too crunchy or something, we just revert back to the glue compressor or we try a different limiter.
Yeah, my turn, motherfucker. That's what's happening right now.
So when are we gonna...
I'm gonna go over, before you tried to take mine, he tried to take mine, and I'm gonna go over my 5 favorite plugins to use. One of the first ones that I was gonna do was Imager until Parker ruined it and surprised you guys. It's a little unacceptable, okay? So
Sorry.
A lot of stuff I like to use is for sound design, for remaking or whatever, and I like to have a lot of different types of metering to know what's going on. So one of the things that I'm going to use is the actual Imager for that. So this Imager, Parker kind of ruined it before, but I'll go ahead and explain it in the correct way. So yeah, you can essentially select your bands. A big way in how I use this is for monitoring the low end of somebody else's. So let's say I'm trying to match a Skrillex low end, right? His low end is crazy, or even a Virtual Riot. It's hard to tell because there's tons of other sounds in it, right? And instead of just putting an EQ on it and cutting out all the highs, so if you use something like an Ozone Imager, and let's say you're trying to remake a kick, or you're trying to hear the low end and get it correct, you can essentially create a band and then solo that band. I think the only thing is I don't like these lights. It's hard to tell if it's on.
Yeah.
So I can go ahead and move this out. Yeah, there we go. So I can kind of hear where the low end's at, and I can see it's pretty mono here as well. So that's very helpful. I'll take something like an EQ8, and then I'll go ahead and do the low cut. And I'll probably do like a really sharp cut like so. And if I pull this up, I can kind of get an idea of where the low end is, right? So I can kind of see that our low end, we have a couple peaks that are hitting right here. That's our bass right there. And it's hitting all the way up into this point in this loudness level. So I can go ahead and just pull in a MIDI track, right? And let's say I pull in a Serum real quick. I can draw in those harmonics, right? I can draw them in and bring up the loudness to be the correct point. How fucking fast I am, dude.
Quick boy.
This is sort of the frequency matching stuff that we've talked about before.
You mainly use Imager as a reference tool.
A monitoring tool, yeah.
Interesting. Do you ever use that kind of like monofire on the low end?
Like my brain is always stock Ableton.
Yeah, it's just faster to use utility.
Yeah, so it's like I'll just put utility on, and then that way we put this project file out, and then everyone can use it. You know, my second favorite plugin, which is Fabfitter Pro-Q3. I know this is one of Parker's favorite too as well, but I'm just gonna show you guys some really cool tricks that you can do with Pro-Q3. You guys all should have this plugin. It's really, really powerful. I'm gonna use the AU version. VSTs are for PC readability. So let's say you're sharing a session with somebody who's on a PC, you wanna make sure you use VSTs. But in this case, I'm gonna wanna use AU, and I'm gonna show you why. So I'm gonna pick one of our main sounds. I'm gonna go ahead and put the Pro-Q3 on this. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make a brand new track. And let's say what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get something close to this sound per se. Again, this goes back into the frequency matching sort of things. If I was to take this MIDI and put it down here, and then also add a same AU Pro-Q3 on it as well, because I'm an Apple, what you can do is, obviously Fabfilter is a very powerful EQ. You can do a bunch of fucking surgical bullshit, you know, look really cool in front of your friends about how you fucking mix 16K out and how, you know, you can do all this bullshit.
Unlimited bands, dude.
Right? And you can also do shit like make dynamic, and I can kind of have a little bit of expansion or some compression on it, which is super, super cool about Fabfilter. But beyond that, a big thing that I don't think a lot of people actually know, so if you go like this over the post, I like to do it on post. Sometimes it's set to pre and post, I believe. Like you can do both of them. I only like post because I want to know what's happening after I'm doing the sound. So I usually have this at the very, very end of my sound, okay, if I'm processing. And then if you look up here, look, it shows any other instances of Pro Q3. So for instance, I can go ahead and choose that one yell leader sound, right? And let's say I hit spacebar. The red is the actual sound of the yell leader sound. So I can see that sound and I can see my sound. And the reason why this can be really helpful in the sense of sound design or mixing is you can kind of start to match your levels that way, similar to what we were doing with the imager, right? And you can also see as far as where they're hitting in their spectrum and also compare to yours. So let's say you're trying to, I don't know, mix a hi-hat. You could say, oh, wow, I'm gonna go ahead and mix my hi-hat. But you're doing it kind of blind. You obviously wanna use your ears first, but you can make your adjustments based on seeing where the actual sound is hitting and making sure you're leaving room for your sound. But I usually use it in the sense of actually trying to, you know, frequency match. Let's say I was trying to make this sound. Go in and I could start drawing in. I could start drawing in the actual harmonics.
If you're super diligent with only using Pro Q3 in your whole session, you can pull up any sound right there.
Right.
If you're having trouble with your low end, you can see like where everything's masking. If there's something weird going in your high end, something's too shrill, you don't have to like go back and like, oh, let's see like what sound that was, you know, it's all right there.
My number 3 that I'm gonna be using is the utility. I've talked about this so much before. The utility is one of the most powerful, simple freaking plugins, right? So what the utility does that's better than anything else that I've ever seen in a lot of these other basic DAWs is it has this width feature, right? So essentially I can start shaping the sound and just by using a little bit of width. You do it too much, it's gonna sound a little bit too phasey. I can spread it out to the side, so all of its side, and it really helps with layering when you're layering chords or something like that. And of course with the mono maker, if you wanted it just to be mono, similar to what Parker was saying with the BX mono maker, except not as good, but good enough to where you can use it on subs or whatever. And then sometimes even this bass mono thing I'll use with some of our basses, where I want some of it to be mono, but not too much, and I want a little bit more control. This is closer similarity to the actual knob that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you can solo it, right? I can.
Do you think it does it with saturation, or is it just a
No, I don't think it's
straight
saturation.
EQ?
Yeah, that's another good point. Is it doesn't have that. Sometimes if I'm sound designing, I'll need to use the utility to sometimes flip phasing. So sometimes you can do that. You can swap left and right. You can just monitor left and right. And then of course you always, if you're doing any sort of volume automation, you always should be doing it on a utility, never on your master, or not your master fader, but essentially your master channel fader.
Yeah.
Always use this because then you're stuck to this and then you are always stuck at that level.
It's a mess.
It's a mess. So that's what's really great about the utility. It's utility, you know what I'm saying? Very
Dude,
simple plugin.
It's a super important plugin. You're totally right.
Yeah.
You're totally right.
Oh, and also too, not to mention, I use this mute feature all the time to have stuff really clean up. I think I'm using it in, so the way I use mute is I'll turn on mute and then I'll power off and then on. I know you're saying you don't like that.
Yeah,
So if you don't want to do that, you can also just you can just automate the mute. So mute off, mute on. It helps really clean up the mix. I like to do it like, to do the power button.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. It doesn't make sense to turn something on, but I use it like in like I'm turning on this effect of like a gate.
Yeah. Cool. It's like a different way to think about it.
Yeah. Makes it a lot tighter. So I always do that. If you look at any of our project files, there's always like a utility on a lot of the drop groups because there's a bunch of artifacts from all the processing. So I make sure that's off when it needs to be off and it's on when it needs to be. The next plugin I'm going to be showing you guys that I love to use is the WLM meter. Okay, so Waves makes the WLM. Okay, this is just a meter. So you can get a free meter called Span and it's really, really helpful. But essentially what I use this for is just loudness monitoring. It's just really simple. It makes sense and I don't have to worry about it too much. So I'm going to go ahead and play our song. Now we got Parker's Pro-L on there, so it's definitely hitting louder.
Yeah,
so, but
hitting.
I can see that I'm getting some -5 and the LUFs -4.1 LUFs. That's pretty loud. Right? We did a video on how to get -3 LUFs like Skrillex. You can see that video right there. But essentially just super, super simple. It's just used for monitoring. It has all this other monitoring bullshit, but honestly, I don't look at any of this stuff. I look at this. But I definitely use this essentially if I'm monitoring somebody else's song. I want to hear how loud they are and how loud we are. It's another confirmation. First should be your ears, right? That's the audio confirmation. And then second should be your eyes, right? You should be able to see. And also, like, I don't know what fucking science works or something where, like, you have, like, a peer, you know, and you're like, hey, is this right? And the guy's like, yeah, I think so.
It's like
and that becomes like,
shit.
then it becomes like a fact.
Yeah.
Or not like a scientific fact, which isn't still a fact.
Yeah.
But essentially, that's how I think about it, right? So I got my ears as like the first thing, my first test, and then my second test is the visual, making sure everything is actually looking correct, right?
It might sound funny, but I'm so used to using WLM, and when I see -6 on this, it feels so good.
It does. It feels so much better.
It feels so good.
You know it's true.
Yeah, and like when I use span and it says -6, like I don't get that
feel it
same
good,
feeling. Yeah. Like it's
I don't know why.
It's probably silly, but like, you know.
And then lastly, I'm going to be using my 5th favorite plugin today is going to be SPL's Transient Designer. Now, there's a lot of transient designers, and a lot of them are really good. Native Instruments has one, UAD has one. I think even now Ableton has one with their drum bus a little bit.
Yeah.
But this one is the OG. This is the one that started it all, okay? Okay, so let's say this really punchy snare, I want to get more out of it, okay? What I can do is I can use the SPL Transient, the Plugin Alliance, right? The Plus, I like the Plus one. The old one didn't have the Plus, but the Plus one's cool because you have more options, okay? And essentially what I can do is I can pull up the attack of this. So it's really helpful in designing snares. I fucking clip it. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But I mean, my master's on, so you can't really tell. But essentially, I would turn the sustain down. You can hear how much sharper it compresses it. It limits it. You can A/B it very, very easily to hear what you did. So if I can hit B, it's like, how does it sound without it? With just the standard. So you can do multiple different things. I'll turn the attack all the way up. Sometimes you can see it's crushing the fuck out of it. It's also adding in back that low end that we had cut out, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that low again. Really helping in designing snares, and together. It helps it cut through just a little bit more.
It brings it alive too.
Yeah.
What situations do you think about when you use the limit button on there? Because a lot of transient designers have that limiter at the end. It's kind of like the soft clip, you know?
Yeah.
Do you usually use it with it on, or do you take it off? Like,
well, it's usually default on, and if I'm feeling like it's doing too much, then I'll turn it off, essentially.
Yeah.
Because you got to realize that you're going into a master, so you're like multiple limiting.
you were telling me the other day that you really trust this transient designer more so than all of the other transient designers. There's like multi-effects that we looked into, and you just don't trust it because it does something weird going into the master, right?
Yeah.
There's something weird. It's like, this is the OG, like you were saying.
If you're hitting too hard too, you can always just pull down the output gain, and let's just say we have the mix now of just that transient. You know, if I'm hitting too hard, I want it to be essentially the same level. Adjusting the sustain is kind of cool too. I'm actually adjusting the sustain of the sound. That sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
That's a little too long. Like this. Nice, tight, sharp, right? I can really, really utilize that. And I'm hearing it through the master, so I know it's okay because we have the Pro-L on. But definitely get into using this. If you don't have this, and let's say you have another good option is the Native Instruments one is okay. I know you like that one quite a bit.
I trust the Native Instruments one.
Yeah, a lot of people do. But if I had to choose between, I've always used this for a long time since I started producing.
Yeah.
So when the Native Instruments one, I'll use it if it's like the only thing I have, but I'm always gonna want to use this personally, so.
This one feels more professional too. It's like, it's SPL.
It looks cool.
It's a trusted company. It looks cool. There's actually more flexibility on this one. The NI one is...
There's only like 3 knobs.
Yeah, there's 3 knobs.
Which is kind of nice.
2 knobs and a button.
Yeah, exactly. Cute little button.
Cute little limiter button on there.
Nice, bro. So those are my 5. So, yeah.
Thank you guys for watching. We went over a lot of really cool tips and tricks that are personal to us that hopefully you guys took away from. If you guys like this kind of video, we will show you guys more stuff. This is kind of like a little taste released into our production, and we love showing this stuff with you guys.
Absolutely.
Go pick up Mid-Temps Volume 2. The pre-sale is still on. There's still a few copies left, so make sure you go grab it. Let's give away a pack for this video, dude.
Yeah, why not?
If you guys stuck around for this long, make sure you have the most liked comment on this video, and we're going to give you Mid-Temps 2 early access.
That's right.
Early access.
We're gonna go ahead and get that. And all of these sounds in this entire project file that we're messing with are available in the Mid-Temps Volume 2 pack. So make sure you guys go get that.
Yes. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week.
Subscribe and shit.
This is Total Annihilation.